let's get started. I see still there are people coming in, but we do have quite a lot of content to cover, so better to get started. And since it's going to be a recording session, even if any of you are missing a portion of it, you should be able to get back to it and replay it. Excellent. So with all that said and done, once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session about COVID tracking in PeopleSoft HCM. And I hope all of you have had a great start to the Reconnect conference so far. This is day 2 and especially a day with most number of sessions happening. So I hope all of you are able to join multiple sessions and get what you are wanting to get out of this conference so far. My name is Logesh Subramaniam, and let me get started with the session here. All right. Excellent. So I'm Logesh Subramaniam, Managing Director at SpearMC, overseeing our HCM and HR technology practice. I have been consulting with PeopleSoft application and leading PeopleSoft projects for over 17 years now. PeopleSoft HCM, HR technology are my core areas of expertise. Specifically on the topic we are going to discuss today regarding health and safety functionality. That has seen quite a lot of work, and it's been rather very busy in that area for over 2 years now with the COVID pandemic. So very glad to have this opportunity to share the information and knowledge gained over the last couple of years in this space, and hope all of you are able to make good use of it. With that, before I jump onto the topic, just a quick brief introduction about SpearMC. You might have already seen this name from Robin's session yesterday. We are the HCM title track sponsor for this event, and we are an Oracle Platinum partner headquartered in Bay Area, and our consultants, offices, and clients are spread across the States and in Canada as well. And as an organization, we pretty much entirely focus on PeopleSoft applications. So this conference is probably our best conference in the PeopleSoft calendar because it's entirely focused on PeopleSoft customers, and it's a deep dive essentially where we get into rather into the weeds about how to do things and what are the best practices, lessons learned, etc. In terms of our services, we offer everything that would be typically needed for PeopleSoft customer base across the product pillars and across the industry verticals. Specifically, a couple of items I want to quickly call out here. In terms of emerging technologies for PeopleSoft, things like Kibana analytics, chatbots, and digital assistants, and those are our specialization areas. That's where we do a majority of our work these days. So if you have any questions around any of those, we have, including myself and my various colleagues of mine, are presenting multiple sessions at this conference over the next couple of days on these topics. So feel free to check it out as well. And recently, an update from Oracle. We are partnering with Oracle to provide the Oracle Guided Learning service as well. So that's an area that guided learning and training and learning passes, those are a key area of our focus as well. So have any questions about any of this, you have my contact information in the slide deck to reach out. With that said, let's get started with the core content of discussion today. It's about health and safety, and specifically about what all you can do in PeopleSoft HCM related to COVID data tracking and reporting. That's our key focus areas. One thing I do want to highlight is if you're following the agenda, there is a session from Julie Alonso later in the day. Today, I have one of the slides on that towards the end of my presentation as well. That's also on the health and safety topic, more heavily focused on all the latest updates and what are the upcoming updates on that front as well. So please, that's a very related session, so please feel free to check that out as well. In this session, I'm going to be focusing rather on the deployment aspect. So there have been a lot of functionalities that have come out in the last 12 to 18 months. And what are some of the lessons that we are learning from our existing deployments as we go through various customers, work through those deployment aspects? What are things that you need to be preparing for and things like that. So deployment process for these various new features is going to be the core focus of the session, this particular topic I'm going to cover today. All right. With that said, A quick update in terms of questions. As and when you have any questions, please use the chat window to post your questions. I have it in a separate monitor over here, and I can watch out for any questions and address them at the appropriate time. If I don't get to address it immediately, we'll have a few minutes at the end of the session to review and address as well. With that said, the session today is going to be broken into two parts. One is about overview and process-related discussion on a slide deck, and then I'm also going to get into the system and show you some of the aspects about the deployment as well. So we have both a demo and a presentation in the session. With that said, for customers who are entirely new to health and safety functionality in PeopleSoft, this is something that we keep reiterating that the health and safety is like a sub-module as part of the core HR HCM functionality in PeopleSoft. It is not licensed separately, so if you are a licensed HR customer, then you already have access to this module. So there's no additional licensing cost for you to start using this module. And the core functionality of the module, the health and safety functionality, has been around for a long time, and it was entirely an administrator focused on administrator specific functionality all along until the COVID pandemic came into the fore. And if you listen to Robin's keynote yesterday, he mentioned there has been a significant focus about ensuring a lot of self-service capabilities added to the module. So that's what we are seeing since update images 36 onwards. More and more self-service capability added to this module to make sure PeopleSoft customers are able to track, easily track and record and report this information, which the requirements of which is changing day by day, right? So, it's been great that the Oracle PeopleSoft team has been able to keep pace with all these changing demands and continuously enhance this module. So, and I also, one of the key areas where the uptake from PeopleSoft customers have been very fast as well. So we'll talk some of those things about those features and when it was released and how to take up those features as well. Now, in addition to COVID and COVID-related tracking, the module is much more elaborate. As a health and safety module, it fully supports the OSHA reporting requirements for USA, and it has country extensions for those various countries listed here, and the reporting requirements for those countries are being met by the delivered module as well. So outside of COVID, if you have a broader requirement around health and safety, this module can be put to use on those aspects as well. With that said, I want to provide a quick bird's eye view about what all can be done using this module, and then specifically highlight where does COVID-related data tracking comes into play. One of the core functionality that has been around for a while and that was self-service enabled is the incident reporting functionality. So an incident can be anything that is related to health and safety of the employees in the organization. And there are various incident types that are delivered, and customers are free to set up their own incident types. Out of the various incident types, some are very frequent, commonly used, like accidents, injury, illness, etc. And there are various other types like dangerous occurrences, exposure, hazardous conditions that can be configured and used as well. Now, out of all of this, the focus of this topic is around COVID, and a COVID-related incident reporting is essentially a COVID illness, right? So this incident reporting functionality can be used for employees to report their COVID illnesses if people have tested positive, and who they came into contact with, when it happened, what was the treatment done. All that information can be recorded using this incident reporting functionality. Now, when it comes to incident data management, like any health and safety incident, as I said before, this module is very vast in terms of the amount of information that can be captured here. So taking an example, if you take any health and safety related incident that might have resulted in an injury or an illness, there is a lot of information that can be collected in this module, starting with who were involved, if there were any vehicles or equipments are involved, what kind of injuries happened, what was the physicians and diagnosis details, how it impacted work, if the incident or injury resulted in any claims, what were the claim details, what were the rehabilitation plans for returning to work, any restrictions and modifications that happened to accommodate that incident, any corrective and preventive actions taken, all of that information can be recorded. And finally, the regulatory reporting, as I mentioned before, whether it's OSHA reporting in USA or other regional reporting for other country extensions, it's all fully supported. Now, one of the very good things about this module is all of this is optional. So you could set up and deploy this module in a way that you are just using it to collect your COVID illnesses, how many people tested positive for COVID and who they came into contact with, when they had it, what treatment they took. You can just use it for that purpose, or you could use it for all of these aspects as well. There is no minimum mandate requirement to configure all of these items. All these are optional elements. Right? Once you start collecting incident data, how much information you want to collect is all entirely configuration driven. Now, one of the additional functionality around this health and safety module is called as an employee health data or employee health card. And this functionality, employee health card, has been around in PeopleSoft HCM application once again for a long time. However, one of the recent updates, which is it's probably not even a month now, is providing the self-service capability to enable employees to submit their vaccination, immunization details, or test results and allergies information. So the three items that are highlighted in blue, the self-service capability to report that information is the newest update that came as a patch release set after image 39. So fairly new, just a few weeks ago that was released. Now, what that self-service feature does is it provides this new online way for employees to report their information and to be collected as part of the employee health card data as part of the health and safety module. And the core purpose of that functionality and that being fast-tracked is to make sure employers who are running PeopleSoft application is able to meet the regulatory reporting needs that are being rolled out by the federal and state governments, right? So that's the key focus areas. So specifically about COVID-related illness tracking and COVID-related vaccination test result and allergies are the items that are the focus of discussion today, right? Related to COVID, what all in this module can support that information. So we are going to sort of dive deep into that information. Now, before we get into actually seeing it in the system, I want to quickly at a high level cover the process associated with it, how this data collection happens and what's the process flow about starting from an employee and where it end up for the reporting purposes, right? So let's just go through the process to see how this works before we get into the system to see in terms of a quick demo as well. To start with, to report any kind of incidents that we saw, in this example, let's say it's a COVID-related illness incident, an employee via self-service can create an incident. In that incident, it's a guided process for the employee. They can provide information about the occurrence, what happened specifically to them in terms of things like what was the impact, what was the treatment taken, who were the people they came into contact with. It could be workplace contact or a non-workplace contact. All of that information can be added by the employee themselves. And providing supporting documents, it could be about proof that they had a particular incident or an injury or an illness or any other information that you want to mandate and review and submit this information. One of the items that is not shown here but is also can be added as part of the delivered functionality is if you want employees to provide any legal acknowledgement as part of reporting this incident, they can do it as well. That would also be an additional step here. Once they submit this information, there is a delivered workflow process that can be configured to your approval requirements. Incident typically needs to be reviewed by an approving authority before it's being recorded in the system. So, and workflow approval process is delivered for that. And that's entirely up to you in terms of how many steps of approval you want, who should it be routed to, etc. Once the workflow approval is received, the information has been recorded, approved, and received, and then starts the process on the administrative side where a related admin could go through and collect more information on the incident if needed. Now, this is the area where I said about it's entirely optional for customers to say how much information they want to collect. For example, all that information that I showed you in the previous slide where they want to collect information about more information about statements, they want to collect in statements from people who were involved, vehicles that were involved, things like that. But all those are optional. So how much information you want to collect beyond what was reported in self-service is entirely optional. And if there were any injuries, there are any claims, there are any workplace accommodations that need to be done, all those ancillary processes can be done in the module itself, depending upon how much you decide to use, like managing claims, managing rehab, corrective preventive actions, and that leads up to all of that information being recorded in the PeopleSoft system and being available for regulatory reporting. The first portion of it, where the employee reports that information, is all now self-service enabled with fluid user interface, while all the other remaining portions, administrative functionalities, are part of the classic user interface. Okay. And there's going to be a lot more information about the reporting capabilities. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, there is a session later today from Julie Alonso at Oracle, who's going to be showcasing the analytics associated with this module as well, and the upcoming analytics for COVID-related information as well. All right. So that portion that we saw about in terms of the process associated with the incident reporting, that is, as I said, that covers the whole module. It can be used for various health and safety incidents. But for the focus of this session, consider one of these use cases is if you are interested in tracking COVID illnesses, that's the process that would need to be followed. Now, moving on to the next step, which is the vaccination and test results reporting process. Now, this is the functionality that was very recently released. It's very similar to the process that we saw earlier, but slightly different, much more simpler when it comes to reporting vaccinations and test results. Starts with an employee creating a self-service request to report that information, provide supporting documents, fill in a very few list of fields to complete that information, and have an acknowledgement, legal acknowledgement that you want to add to the vaccination reporting or test results reporting process, and submit the requests. And once submitted, there is a delivered workflow process that's entirely optional depending upon whether you want to review and approve each vaccination and test results or collect that information without going through a workflow approval process. That's all configuration, how you want to handle it. And that information is recorded and available for reporting. Obviously, this particular functionality, vaccination and test results, has been fast-tracked to make sure customers have an option to record that information and report it to meet the federal demands. So the reporting of this information is all essentially at this stage is all query-driven. So you have all the underlying data tables that information is collected and customers can create their own queries to report it. But soon we will expect some of the analytics to come, delivered analytics to come into fore as well. Okay, so that's the two key information, the process associated with reporting an incident and reporting vaccination and test results. Now, having gone through the high-level process overview about what this module does, let's spend some time in the system to actually show you how employees do it and what administrators see, etc. And as I'm going through that, I'll also talk about what are some of the deployment considerations you need to go through as well. As I mentioned before, feel free to post any questions online in the chat window as well. All right, so I'm logging into one of the latest demo environments, Pump 13, which has been patched with the patch release that I mentioned that brings in this COVID-related vaccination and test results functionality. And with that, I've logged into the employee self-service. So one of these new functionalities, let me make sure this is a little bit bigger so I can all see it clearly. All right. So the new functionality around self-service for health and safety module is all grouped under this health and safety tile on the employee homepage. And when we go into the tile, um, the various options that are available for self-service reporting in this module is available here, starting with reporting an incident. That's an example that I said. One of the COVID-related incidents that can be tracked here is COVID illnesses. If anybody has tested positive and more information regarding that you want to capture, that would fall under reporting an incident. Vaccination information, ability to record the employee's vaccination, test results, and allergies. So what we'll do is we'll go through some of these examples. I'll start with the vaccination and test results because that's the newest functionality that came out, and also then talk about reporting an incident as well. Okay. So for that, I have picked up an employee and already have a couple of information in here because I wanted to show some scenarios as well. But as you can see here, this employee has reported a couple of COVID-related vaccination information, and one is in submitted status, meaning it is awaiting approval before it gets into the recorded status. So once an administrator has reviewed and approved that information as per your workflow requirements, then this information is ready for reporting, and it's marked as recorded in here. So I'll start with the reporting process itself. So a vaccine is going to be configured by the users, by the customers, what sort of vaccine information they want to collect. And there is some flexibility over this here. So I have set up a couple of examples here. A COVID vaccine could be, as we started this year with, it could be like one set of doses, depending upon which provider you want to record different options. So COVID-19 could be an option. And now as we hear more about, there is potentially booster shots available. So that could be set up as a separate vaccine, or it could be part of an additional dosage to an existing vaccine. So there is some options in terms of how you can set up. And it's not specific to just COVID. You can set up any vaccine that you want to record and track in the system, right? So it's all configuration driven. So I'll pick up the COVID vaccine option. When an employee chooses a vaccine, they could opt to decline it as well. I'll show you an example of declining a vaccine. The form looks slightly different, but to start with recording a vaccine, let me start with that example. And a very basic form in terms of collecting the vaccine information. When the vaccine took place, let's say go to that. I already have an entry on the date, so I'll go with, let's say, today's date. Who were the manufacturers? This is all configuration data, and this is going to be very similar to most of the customers in terms of what configurations are, what manufacturers you want to set up for COVID vaccine. So let's say I went with a particular manufacturer, and that vaccine setup also allows customers to configure the dosages. So for Moderna, it's 2 doses, or Johnson & Johnson, it could be 1 dose. So you set that information up based on the number of dosages that are recommended by CDC. And lot number is typically printed on the vaccine card. And that's not a mandatory information, but just to show you an example, when you set up this page, when you want to mandate some of the information, you can obviously do so. For example, lot number, I have made it mandatory using the page and field configurator functionality. So you don't have to write code to enable any of this. You can just go into the configuration page and make any particular field mandatory or default it, etc. But as delivered in this particular form, the attachments are a configuration option that says whether you want to enable attachments and whether you want to make it mandatory. Our attachments going to be mandatory for submissions. That can be enabled via the vaccine configuration as well. But using frameworks like page and field configurator, you could work and make sure how you want to mandate some of the information or hide some of the information if it is not relevant to you. So in this example, let me go with a specific lot number. And when it comes to location, there are a couple of options. If you are providing vaccines at workplace, then the workplace could be an option. System defaults the employee's location as the location, but employee can obviously look and choose another location where they took the vaccine. It's going to be another office location that's going to be available in the list. Let's say if you don't offer any of this vaccines at workplace, then you can completely take this option off. Or you could also do one more thing. If location information of vaccination is not key, then you can hide this information as well. So that is entirely possible. So all these would be part of your deployment consideration. How much information and what in specific information you want to collect. And comments, once again, optional information depending upon what you want to collect. Now, one of the other important information here is next to vaccine due date. Now, this is part of the vaccine setup as well, where as part of the vaccination setup, you can define how many dosages are part of that vaccine and what is the schedule of the vaccine. For example, if the vaccine, it could be in months or years, you could say the vaccine is on a yearly schedule. If you set up as 1 year, then it's going to automatically show you when the next vaccine is due, provided this vaccine is complete. So what I mean by that is, let's say I choose Johnson & Johnson, who only offers 1 dose. And for an example, I have set up that vaccine is good for 6 months. So what it says is my next vaccine due date is 5th of April in 2022. That's derived based on this date. Now, this is entirely optional. You could, especially for COVID vaccines, when we don't know what's going to be the situation next year, obviously you wouldn't want to guess that information. So probably not many customers would be keen to enable this. But showing this next vaccination due is controllable, it's configuration as well. So we could decide not to show that information. But let's say if you have a flu vaccine that is on a yearly frequency and you want to record that information, when you set up flu as a vaccine option, then you could set up the next vaccine due as information to be shown to the customer. So that's the key information to provide here. As I mentioned before, the attachments is optional. You can set it up to be required and mandatory. In this example, I have made it mandatory. So let me go ahead and add this attachment. But most likely, specifically for COVID vaccination, you would want to make it mandatory so that you are collecting the vaccine cards or a proof of vaccination as part of this submission. So let me just make a note here that this is a vaccine card. And then comes the acknowledgement section, and the acknowledgement section is entirely configurable as well. So as you can see in this example in here, I have provided some generic messaging from the EEOC Commission, EU Commission guidelines, and you can have hyperlinks, rich text formatting in here. So whatever is the legal wording that's going to come from your legal department as part of collecting this information, you can set up in the acknowledgement section over here. So it can have links that could open for more information, and maybe especially around COVID vaccinations, there could be some reservations about the information being collected. So where you can provide any supporting information, why it is being collected, how it is being used, etc. All of that. This section comes in handy, and the employee have to acknowledge it for them to submit it. And once submitted, it is in the submitted status. An employee can review who it is pending approval with, and this is all configuration driven. So as delivered, it goes to a health and safety admin for approval. So depending upon your organization requirements, it may need to go to different people before it's recorded in the system. Now, one thing to note is as delivered in this module, the health and safety module is heavily I would say categorized by regions, regulatory regions, and this approval as delivered supports different regulatory regions. So when you have health and safety admins, you can split it by different regulatory region and route the approval to different administrators, and that's supported as delivered using the delivered roles as well. Okay, so when you set up these workflow approvals in the system, depending upon whether it's going to be regional approvals or central approval, you can configure the workflow accordingly. Okay. So that's an example of submitting a vaccination. Now, the process is almost exactly similar for the test results as well. Now, before I go into test results, I also want to discuss one more item, a deployment consideration. As I mentioned before, this functionality is very new, fast track to make sure customers have an option to capture this information. But as you go through deployment process, there are a few things that you can consider. One is when it comes to any cross validations, there aren't any cross validations that are delivered out of the box, but this might come in handy when you want to just not immediately roll out this, but also want to continue to use this functionality for a longer period. Then you may have to think about some of the cross validations as well. For example, let's say I submitted a vaccination, but I also want to, let's say I choose the same vaccine and I'm trying to decline that vaccine. Now, this is an example I have specifically added. This is not a delivered validation message, but I have added a validation here says a vaccine entry for today's, this particular entry is different. Let me pick up another one. Okay. Just give me 1 second in here. Yes. So this is a validation message that I have specifically added. For example, I chose to enter a vaccine that I have already recorded as I have taken, and I chose to decline that option. So brought up a validation message that says cannot decline a vaccine that has already been registered as taken, right? So these kind of validations, and not just that example, so you can pick up a vaccine even in the submission page, right? So let's say a person recorded a dosage 1 or haven't recorded dosage 1 but entering the dosage 2 when they first time recording it. So the data doesn't seem to be correct, where maybe they should be first advised to enter the first dosage before the second dosage. Or their first dosage, they chose Pfizer as a manufacturer, but for the second one, they are choosing Johnson & Johnson. So mixing the manufacturer, once again, a potential data issue, right? So those sort of cross-validations, there aren't delivered cross-validations as such, but what we would recommend, what we are working with a couple of our customers is you use the related event functionality where you can have your own validation rules and tag it to this component. So you're not actually customizing this component itself or customizing the delivered code line, but actually adding more validations and attaching to this particular page. So this example that I showed you for the decline is actually a related event code that gets fired when I'm trying to submit it. It doesn't allow employee to proceed further. So those sort of validations would definitely be recommended when you're trying to deploy it, and not just for immediately collecting this vaccine information, but for long-term use. For immediately collecting this vaccine information, given that there is a government deadline to get everybody vaccinated or report that information, I think most customers are trying to fast track it. So I don't think these validations are super critical. But for the long-term use, these are some of the things that you need to plan for as well. So that's with the vaccination. And before I leave here, I just want to quickly cover one more item, that you choose the booster option and choose the decline. So when I choose the decline option, the form is very similar to the actual vaccination recording, but the information is slightly different in here. I get to choose a reason for declination, and in this case, there are 4 delivered reasons. Obviously, this list is again configurable, and you can manage what options you want to give them. And especially when you are talking about reasons for declination, that's where the acknowledgement and legal wordings around collecting that information comes into play. So when you have different options and when you're asking more questions about why they are declining, then the legal acknowledgement needs to cater for those things. So just be mindful of that. So an employee gets to choose a reason why they are declining. And is it medical reason, let's say allergies, and an attachment if it is mandated, let's say if you want to mandate for medical exceptions, you want to mandate any doctor evidence, then you mandate that information in here. I think I have made it mandatory, so let me attach a document to proceed. All right, so All right, I think this is another validation I have added that's probably not applicable here. So let me skip that. So that's an example of declining a vaccine, very similar in terms of process, very similar in terms of approvals and recording the information as well. Now, since I called out that, let me ignore this change. Since I called out that there is a decline, I'm declining due to a medical reason and I have an allergy, that's where the allergy self-service information comes into play. So let me quickly review that. So allergy section is pretty straightforward, much more simpler than the vaccination reporting. Basically, employee gets to add the allergies they have, and the allergies are set up and configurable by you. Let's say if they have an allergy that would prevent them from taking COVID vaccines, they could just record it here. And there isn't a workflow process or approvals or review information associated with this. Information is immediately recorded and it is available on the employee health card when administrators use it. So we'll go to the admin view next and show that information, but the reporting process is much more simpler. There isn't an approval process associated with it when it comes to allergies. The test result reporting is also a very similar process just to the vaccination that we saw. Once again, all the test options are customer configuration driven. So what are the different options you want to give? You choose those options in here. Once again, there are some options like you could set up different kinds of COVID tests as an individual test item like I have done here, like COVID-19 as an antigen test or a PCR test. Or you could set up COVID test as one item and choose different methods. Typically, methods are used for how the test is taken, not how the test is done, right? So that's the reason I have set up COVID antigen as a separate test and COVID PCR as a separate test. So there are a couple of options that information can be collected here. Let's say I took this test yesterday and the results and the method are all configurations. So you choose what results and what method should be available for the employees to report. Once again, location information, it could be a workplace location or another location where I took it. It is not mandatory information, so I could just put in some optional info here. And I think I've made attachments mandatory. That's also a configuration. You could choose to have attachments are optional, but test results, most likely you would want to collect a proof of the test result as well, so that the information is mandatory. And you get to define the acknowledgements. As delivered, it's the same acknowledgement that is used in both places, but fairly easy to set up a different acknowledgement when it comes to vaccination and test results, depending upon the kind of information you're collecting. So go ahead and approve that and end that. So that's the test results recording as well. So that test results recording also goes through a workflow approval process. Once again, it's entirely up to you whether you want to have an approval or disable it so that it's immediately recorded, or you want to have multi-step approvals and get it reviewed before it is recorded, right? So all those are your deployment considerations, once again, how you want to set it up. But as delivered, it is exactly similar to the vaccination. It goes to the health and safety admin, and it can be categorized by regions. You could have different people reviewing and approving different regions. So the process is exactly similar. So before I go into the admin side of things and show what they see, I want to quickly also cover the incident reporting. Now, this incident reporting functionality has been around for a while now. When I say while, in COVID terms, it's been, I would say, it's been around for a year now, so much longer compared to vaccination test results and allergies. And this report incident can be used much broader than COVID, right? I already discussed that. And what I wanted to quickly show here is an example of specifically relating to COVID and this topic that we are covering today. And there are various incident types. Illness is an incident type, so I can choose COVID illness as an option and use this guided process to collect information about the illness itself. Once again, not directly related to what government is mandating now in terms of vaccination tracking, but incident tracking can be used much beyond COVID. So for example, I'll say um, COVID positive. When it happened, let's say what time you tested, maybe the information that you want to capture. Once again, what fields are available here, how you want to use it, you can control it via configurations like page and field configurations. Make it very simple and collect only the information that you need to record. When it comes to an incident reporting, it could be incidents that doesn't involve an injury or an illness or have an injury or illness or both. So you have various options that you can choose. Specifically for this use case, when I choose illness, I do have an option to record COVID-19 as an illness. Say once again, tested positive, whether took any treatment, hospitalized, what kind of treatment, all the information can be collected. Let's say have hospitalized, additional information about body part affected, nature of injury, all this is optional information. So let me keep it simple. I think where this incident reporting comes in handy when it comes to COVID is basically about tracking, right? If the COVID positive employee was in office when they had symptoms or when they didn't have symptoms, and you want to collect more information about who they came into contact with, that's where this information comes in handy. Incident reporting comes in handy. Because if a person just have to report that they tested positive for COVID, they could use a test results page, right? They don't have to go and report an incident. The incident report comes in when you want to start tracking people who were involved, etc. And the people connected page allows you to do that, where it could be either a workplace contact where they select a person and whether how they were involved in the incident. There could be an option here set up as came into contact, or it could be a non-workplace contact if you want to record family information, or it's a workplace where outsiders are allowed and you want to record that information. They could add other contact as well. So it doesn't have to be just employees. You can collect additional people involved in the incident or came in contact with this person who tested positive. So that information comes in handy in here. Once again, attachments optional. Let me just quickly add. And review and submit. And this is an area where I said there are customers who have in early stages have rolled this out functionality and also added before review and submit, they have added an acknowledgement step as well. Acknowledgement step is delivered as part of this activity guide category. It's just not enabled in this template. But if you need an acknowledgement as part of reporting an incident or an illness, then you could easily enable that acknowledgement step before you submit as well. So final step is basically reviewing all that information and submitting it. So that is essentially all of the self-service functionality that is available. So let me sign out and log in as an approver. Log in as an approver. Now the approval is all fluid approvals enabled. So when you go to the approval tile, if the approver is the receiver of the particular approval, then all of that information is going to be available on the fluid approval tile in here. So I'll quickly show that. Looks like it's taking a bit of time. And once the information is approved, I also want to quickly cover where the information is available for ongoing reporting and maintenance as well. So we'll wait for the page to load. Meanwhile, we'll check if there are any questions. Please send through any questions in the chat window because I think by default all the participants are muted. So if there are any questions, please send through. Let me see if there is anyone. I don't see any questions so far, but please feel free to send through any questions. So in here, so since the page is loaded, so various approvals are pending, and I can see here test results. There are a couple of test results pending and a couple of vaccinations pending. So let me go to the vaccination page. Calvin Roth is the example I used earlier. So all that information that was submitted by the employee is available for review in here. One additional information that the employee does not see is the vaccination status. So if you have set up a particular vaccine to be multiple doses or single dose, and if employee has completed those doses, so for example, Johnson & Johnson has been set up with one dose, and the employee has reported that, a vaccination complete status is shown as yes. That all depends on the dosage and what is the dose the employee is reporting. So for Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, if they submit dose 1, it's going to say vaccine complete no. And when this report the second dosage, then it shows vaccine complete yes. The attachment that is added by the employee is available in here for approvers to view, and they get to approve, deny, pushback, etc. based on that information that was submitted. So let me quickly approve it. And that's just one example. Approval comes with email notifications, push notifications, all the standard workflow approval functionality. So you can see here there are various things that are waiting my approval. So it comes up in the push notification window over here. Same things with the email as well, all standard delivered approval and notification features. Let me also quickly go in as an administrator. And when it comes to administrative functionality, managing health and safety, there's quite a lot of functionalities and feature that covers the entire module. And there is a great analytics, Kibana-based analytics dashboard for health and safety module incident analytics. That's not the focus of the session now, so I'll skip that portion, but it works and looks great. So definitely something for you to explore further. There is a session that's focused on analytics related to health and safety by Julia Alonso as well later today. So please feel free to check that out. And for now, let me quickly go on to the incident management. Now, when it comes to incidents, that is reporting illnesses and any other incidents, there is a lot of information, as I said, that can be collected potentially. So an incident once approved is part of the incident section over here. But the core focus of our discussion when it comes to vaccination and test results tracking, that's part of employees' health card information. So it's under the record medical exam results folder in here and health card. So the employee I was using was Calvin Roth. So let me look for Calvin Roth. And this page is a new functionality where it is used to easily access all the information that was collected via self-service. So as you can see here, it starts with vaccination for Reg Region USA. For this employee, is reported a couple of vaccine information, what date, whether the vaccine was completed, when the vaccination is next due. That's based on the schedule that we set up in the vaccine. If they declined it, what was whether it was declined and the decline reason. All the other information like the manufacturer detail, the dose numbers, location, where they took it, the attachments they added, all that information is available as part of the vaccine section. Same is with the test result section. The reason that we are not seeing here is I did not approve it. Once I approve it, it is available for admins to view here. Because this is the underlying tables that are used for reporting. Submitted information needs to be reviewed and approved before it is available for you to report as well. Allergies, I did add an allergy for anaphylaxis, and that's didn't have any approval process, so that's readily available in here as well. Medication and illnesses, there isn't equivalent self-service. That's part of the health card information for available for admins to maintain here. Okay. So that's the admin page functionality where this information can be accessed continuously and reported as well. And especially when you are trying to report how many people have completed vaccination, then this information comes in handy in terms of reporting who have taken the full course and who is partial, etc. Okay, so that's the administrative side of things. Let me go back to the slide deck. We have another 10 minutes to wrap up our discussion. All right. So when it comes to the deployment process of this functionality, one of the I would say the most impressive thing is the flexibility of this module, which is you can decide to deploy any individual pieces of information that you saw today. So for example, if you just want to collect vaccine information, you can just deploy that self-service and use the health card on the admin side. You don't have to do any other configuration outside of that functionality within the health and safety module. If you want to collect allergies or immunization, test results, reporting incident, any of them can be deployed individually. What this checklist shows here is when you want to deploy a particular feature like incident tracking, all these items are available as optional. To deploy your incident tracking, you can choose just to deploy the incident reporting, and you can then at a later time roll out various additional information that you want to capture, right? So all of them can be done in a phased manner as well. When it comes to self-service deployment, just remember the things that you need to keep in mind. When it comes to incident reporting, you have the incident types, activity guided process, the AW approvals, email templates, how you want to configure. All of that are pre-configured and in a working condition in your demo environment. You just have to tailor them to your requirements. What is your exact approval requirements? What are your exact email wordings that you want to send out, and so forth. Same as with the health card. To deploy your COVID vaccination, there are only a couple of basic setup, manufacturer, and immunization details, and rolling it out using setting up the security, making sure employees can access them. In addition to that, the standard items like the acknowledgements, AW approvals, and email templates come into picture there as well. So quickly configure it, tailor it to your personal needs, and enable it. There are various customers who are already in process to deploy it by end of next week, right? 15th October is one of the key dates for collecting and reporting this information. So that's that item. Now, when it comes to deploying any of these functionalities, we provide end-to-end support in terms starting with the selective patching up until deploying to production. This information is part of the slide deck as well. So customers who are keen to needing an external support to deploy this functionality, feel free to reach out and we can provide more information as well. And the duration is for any of this functionality is probably very small, where it's we are talking about in weeks in terms of deployment duration, compared to any other modules that may take months to deploy. Okay. All right, there's more information in the slide deck about various references, various links that you can refer to when it comes to this functionality. Of course, there is a lot of updates happening quick, so more and more information coming out. So keeping track of them is difficult. So information is provided here, links where you can find more information about all the items that we discussed today. And I want to quickly highlight the session that I referred to multiple times is the Employees Health and Safety Update by Julie Alonso, which is scheduled later today. So that's more about what is in the pipeline and what is already out and what is in the pipeline for this functionality as well. So feel free to attend that session as well. And we have various other sessions, as I mentioned before, when it comes to emerging technologies, the latest and greatest functionality in PeopleSoft, how to use them, use cases, and case studies. We have multiple sessions where I and my colleagues are presenting over the next couple of days. Here is a quick reference of that. Feel free to attend and join anything that is relevant to you. All right. With that, I will wrap up my session, and the slide deck, updated slide deck, a copy of it is already available in the Quest website. Feel free to review and provide your feedback as well. Thank you very much, all of you, for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of the conference. I see there's a question coming up. I see a person raising the hand, but feel free to post any questions you have. I'm just looking at the chat window over here to see if there are any questions. None so far, but I'm going to be available for another few minutes in this session, so please feel free to raise any questions.